Good morning, everybody. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished participants. Welcome to our international roundtable, expert roundtable on organ trafficking or human trafficking for organ removal and the establishment of health focal points. Those who have joined us before know that we would like to discuss things and try to move them forward somehow. So we expect some others to come later this morning. Probably it was also the rain who stopped them from being in time, but we are very pleased to be here. It's a roundtable in the framework of the Regional Implementation Initiative on Preventing and Combating Human Trafficking, and we are very pleased, very happy to be here at the Haus der Europäischen Union, that we are, can be guest here. And without further delay, I would like to ask the new head of the new boss, so to say, of this institution here, Jörg Wojahn, the head of the representation of the European Commission in Austria. This is the official title. I would like to give him the floor for his welcoming remarks. Please.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our house, the House of the European Union in Austria. We are the hosts here together with the European Parliament. My colleague Georg Pfeiffer is there as well. We are very glad to have this important and eminent event in our house, and I think it's also very timely to discuss this, and especially as this aspect of organ, I'm a bit unlucky with the microphone today, even this particular aspect of trafficking in human organs, as it is such a perfidious and heinous crime, we cannot enough emphasize the importance of this, and therefore we are very happy and very grateful that you have chosen this venue to discuss these issues, and our house is always open. I would like not to make many more remarks here in this context, because you are the experts, you have been dealing with the topics in depth, and it would be a bit presumptuous for me to take more of your time. So instead, I rather pass the floor to the honourable member of the European Parliament, Ms. Karin Kadenbach, who will address you now, and thank you very much.
Let me just say a few words. The reason why we are so pleased to have politicians here, is the intention of the Regional Implementation Initiative to make politicians to join us and to understand better what's going on, and then finally also to adapt the policy responses, because we are not always pleased with what politicians in general, do with on this issue. So I'm especially pleased that Karin Kadenbach is here. She is a member of the European Parliament. She is head and deputy chair of many committees, several committees, important committees, and I'm sure that she will, being here today, that she will go back to her colleagues in the European Parliament and discuss things as we also believe it's important. So please, Karin, you have the floor.
Well, first of all, welcome to Vienna, welcome to the House of the European Union. I want to thank you very much, Helga Konrad, for the invitation, and I really, I'm proud to be here. I do have a kind of career in the health business. Also, I'm not a health professional. I'm coming from politics. I used to be in local government. I was health state minister in Law Austria. That's actually the area all around Vienna. And I'm now in the 7th year in the European Parliament, and there in the so-called ENVI committee. That's the committee responsible for the environment, public health, and food safety. And during all this time, I met somebody who was head of the Social Democrats in Lower Austria then, and he had a heart transplant, and it's now something like 20 years that he's still living and enjoying life. And this was my first contact to transplantations. And one word to Helga, I used to be what they call a women's secretary, so all issues, all topics concerning women, concerning gender politics are very important to me still, also in health politics. And trafficking, and especially women trafficking, has always been one topic we really had a close eye on. And transplants and was also, and organ transplantation was a topic in the European Parliament about, it's already 5 years ago. In 2010, we were talking about that, and especially trying to coordinate and trying to fight illegal trade with organs, and also fight Europeans from going to countries outside the European Union and buy and get there very often very urgently needed transplant. So we try to work together on the European level, and that's why I'm here today. I'm not going to say much more because I think it's very, very important for me as a politician, as a member of the ENVI committee, to hear from you as experts what is needed, what has to be done, and what can be done and must be done on a European level. I know that the member states, that the health issues are still in competence of the member states, but a big part of health issues are border crossing, are European. Trafficking is something that cannot be fought by a member state or a region alone. We have to work together, and we have to find the legal basis to fight trafficking, to fight illegal organ donations, to fight illegal operations, and we have, and that's something that's very important for me, we have to work together on all political levels and all levels with the civil society. So Helga, thank you very much for having me here today. I only can stay until 11 o'clock because, and that's for me important, before I came here, I had a meeting with experts in Austria who are specialized on transplant and organ transplant, especially in view of kidney transplants. And then I'm going to see the new plant from Baxter, also talking about plasma transplant and so on. So it's a very medical day today for me. And yes, thank you so much. And I'm really anxious to hear from you. Thank you, Helga.
Yeah, thank you very much. This is exactly what we wish, politicians who care, and really wish to get informed. Thank you very much, Karin. We have another politician here, Alev Korun. Thank you very much for coming, because it's an election period in Austria, and this is always a strange period of time, because politicians are always occupied with so-called more important things, these days. So even more so, we appreciate very much that you took your time and you could come. And let me say that Alev Korun, she's the chair of the Human Rights Committee of the Austrian Federal Parliament. And of course, it's important, and during the day, we will talk a bit more about it. It's important to link up with the human rights, organizations, because this is an important part in the fight against human trafficking in general, and especially on human trafficking for organ removal also. So please, Alev Korun, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Helga Konrad. Thank you for the invitation, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor for me as a member of the Austrian Parliament and the chairperson of the Human Rights Committee of the Austrian Parliament, to be here with you today. I have been working on the theme of human trafficking some years now, and I try to focus on the rights of trafficked women especially. And I think not only in Austria, but in many European countries, we have many things to do still to strengthen the rights of trafficked persons, and there especially trafficked women, so we can win the so-called battle against trafficking. Because if we don't have the trust of persons who are victims of trafficking, we will unfortunately not be able to solve the trafficking problem. In 2011, it was estimated that the illicit organ trade generated illegal profits between 600 million US dollars up to 1.2 billion US dollars per year. So we have here something which is a criminal crime and which is unfortunately a big profit theme for many people. And to us all, it seems that organ harvesting and the trade with those organs is some distant nightmare out of a horror movie, but the shocking fact is it is in many countries a reality, unfortunately. And I just want to tell you very briefly from the meeting we had as members of the Human Rights Committee in the Austrian Parliament with Mr. Ethan Gutmann, who was researching on the theme of of organ harvesting and organ trade, especially in China. 2 years ago, he came to the Austrian Parliament and wanted to talk to members of the Human Rights Committee. And the facts he was talking about, and he is the writer of the book The Slaughter, about human harvesting in China. It was very shocking for us, although as human rights activists and members of the parliament, we had some information about organ removal and human and organ traffic and organ removal and criminal things about that. Mr. Gutmann documented the persecution and organ harvesting from tens of thousands of Falun Gong practitioners and followers in China in the last decade. On alleged charges, Falun Gong followers were imprisoned and sentenced to death by Chinese authorities, their bodies used for organ removals for profitable organ transplantations in China. As you all know, probably China decided last year to abolish the use of dead prisoners for organ removal by January 2015. And whether this actually stopped the practice of state-decreed manslaughter for organ trading in China stands to be questioned. So we all must be very aware and follow the developments also there, not only in China, of course, but also there. Well, I want to thank you, Helga Conrad especially, and to all organizations which were active by organizing this conference, because I think we need to create awareness also within the group of politicians, but also within the citizens and, of course, within the governments. We need a more adept understanding on how these criminal networks operate, who is involved, and which legal actions are needed to effectively stop organ removal and trade. And for doing more for solving the problem, we have to deal also with the underlying problems, which are, in my opinion, very much poverty, lack of human rights, and lack of the rule of law. So I want to thank you again for the conference. I unfortunately will not be able to stay to the end, but it doesn't have to be with the election campaign. There are other things I have to do, unfortunately, but I'm very keen on hearing the first panel at least when I will be here. Thank you very much for being here, and thank you very much for this great job, so we all can connect to each other and learn from each other. Thank you.
Thank you very much, dear Alev, Korun. You mentioned already a few issues which we will discuss today. You mentioned that, or what we see very often is that the poor have become the body part store, so to say, for the wealthier ones, and this is a highly political issue. So thank you for that, and we certainly have to discuss much more. So I'm now very pleased that we have when I say our, so then it's our Austrian national coordinator on human trafficking with us. It's Ambassador Elisabeth Tichy-Fisslberger. She is known to almost everybody. She's the head of the task force. We have in Austria a task force where all the ministries are together discussing, not only discussing, but also trying to find ways how to improve the situation, the anti-trafficking situation. So we are very pleased that you are here, Elisabeth, and please, you have the floor.
Well, dear Helga, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very pleased to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I'm not a politician, I'm not a doctor, I'm only a humble civil servant, but we try to coordinate in Austria within the task force which Helga mentioned, among all the players and stakeholders, what could be done about human trafficking. This task force was created in 2004. It is now operating with its first, trying to help implement the fourth National Action Plan in Austria. And I do realize that we have been focusing on many areas, but not very much on organ trafficking and on health issues. So this is something which happens all over Europe and happens in other countries. This is maybe the most brutal way and the form of human trafficking, and maybe the one which has been the least analyzed, in fact. Human trafficking, as has been said, is always a consequence of poverty, also a failure of the state to implement its rules. There is, for example, as you may know, a fairly new convention by the Council of Europe that all our countries participate in, which is now open for signature, or has just been signed by some countries. And that convention provides how organ transplants should, in fact, be performed. That is, if the persons consent freely, if there is no financial gain, if there is all the legal and medical protection needed. There has to be compensation for the victims. There has to be complete transparency about what is going on. There has to be equal access of all citizens to transplant. So that is a very nice convention. But as always, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. And we all know that what is going on in reality is often kind of a travel agency of death or a slaughter, or whatever you want to call it, as we have heard before. So that is the challenge. We pride ourselves in Austria to say that we don't have organ trafficking because we have a rather clever legal provisions which say that in principle, unless a person has said, I don't want my body in the event of an accident to be used for transplants, then the law presumes that that person would agree. And that, of course, makes it easier for doctors to find organs if there is an emergency. In many countries, it is the opposite. You have, as long as you are still alive and in good health, you have to agree that your organs can be used. So this is why we think we have less of a problem, or no problem in Austria, but I'm not so sure that that is what is the case, because if we see what is going on also currently with masses of people coming from poor country to this country, or transiting through this country to places which they think are even richer and more prosperous and more welcoming, many of them have really spent the last money they have. Maybe they were asked to spend more money than they actually had, and what organs are, they are the commodity of the very miserable. Those who have nothing left to pay with, then they are asked for an organ. And as we have learned, kidneys are relatively easy to store and to transplant, and that is what many of them are asked to give. Sometimes there are even more horrific stories. And we do have the rumors of what is going on not far from here. We don't know much about them, and I think it is important to try and explore more what is going on. And maybe then we'll be able to get not only parliaments to make good laws, but also those who have to implement these laws to have a better understanding of what is going on. And don't forget, health issues are not only something that needs to be protected by the law, but sometimes this whole area of health can also serve as an evidence of what has been going on. So if doctors find out what has been going on, that might help us to prevent things from happening in the future. And I hope that this meeting will contribute a little bit to raise some awareness for this problem. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Elisabeth. And now we are here in Vienna, the city of Vienna. And the city of Vienna has recently become a city of human rights. And we are very pleased that we have Asadi Shams here, the head of the Human Rights Office of the city of Vienna. And as we said, we would really like to link up much more with human rights organizations. So we are very pleased to have you here, Asadi Shams. You have the floor, please.
Thank you very much. It's a great honor for me to be here. And actually for the human rights cities, it's great that we have the conference here. So you've heard Vienna is, since last December, is a new human rights city, maybe the newest one for the time being in the world. So our council, our city council, has approved a very ambitious and very clear structured declaration. And this declaration shows us what we do and what are the steps of the implementation of the human rights approach. Vienna is committed to act as a defender, and a gardener of the human rights. We know for the time being, most of the population of the world, they live in cities, so it's very important for cities to take this responsibility very seriously and act in this area. Human and organ trafficking is one of the most crucial kind of human rights violation, and unfortunately it is on rise even in Europe. In fact, it's the second crime after the drug trade for the time being, and it's very sad. Human trafficking is a cross-border issue, therefore it has to be also tackled from global, European, national, and from the local levels. It's gratifying that today so many experts, politicians, and organizations, they are here and discussing this issue and this subject. In this moment, it is the really right time and right place also to discuss this subject, because we see the whole movements of refugees and migrations. It's really, it is the right time. And worldwide, the intensity and diversity of trafficking increases rapidly. So it's very important to have such conferences and discuss, and of course to find policies and strategies to support the victims of also these traffickings. We have already heard about the national strategies. Vienna is the member of this task force for many years, and Vienna is in this task force for more than 6 departments. And as the new established human rights office, and also I have the honor to be the head of this office, in the next days we are going to have an internal meeting and just to clear out our strategies in this area. So we take also this responsibility very seriously, and you can imagine how full our agenda is for the time being. So the occasion on which we have the conference today is not very human rights compliant. And I really wished we could have had a meeting in Vienna on any other subject, but not human trafficking and human organ removal. But we have, for the time, in the situation, and it's good that we are here, and we are, for the time being, we are with thinking about the strategies for fighting the trafficking. I wish for us and for you, all of you, a very fruitful discussion, and many thanks for Helga Conrad for your outstanding work for so many years now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Asadi Shams, and I'm sure we will hear in the future a lot more about your office, your new office, and about your activities. Thank you very much. So when talking about health and gender, and not only with trafficking, one person always comes into our mind. This is Beate Wimmer-Puchinger. She's a professor and she's a doctor herself, and she's the one who worked together with the WHO on women's programs, and she still is the executive director of the Vienna health program, and she's the one always trying to make us aware how important it is, you know, to involve health issues and also health and gender issues in what we do. And so therefore we are very pleased, and this time, for the first time, we have established official cooperation, so to say, the Regional Implementation Initiative with the Women's Health Program, and we would like to continue that. This is maybe the moment I can tell you that we have another international expert roundtable on 20 November, and we will continue this cooperation. So we are very pleased that you are here, and dear Beate, you have the floor.
Thank you, Helga, for this kind introduction, and I really now feel obliged to do something. Thank you very much. Dear ladies, dear gentlemen, dear distinguished guests, on behalf of the city, as already Shadi said, let me welcome you most cordially to this international, very, very important roundtable. We are proud and privileged to host you in our city. Especially, of course, I would like to thank you, dear Helga, to bring this international meeting to Vienna, because this will be very inspiring, and of course, it will turn us on, going on in this very, very important issue one has to be confronted with. This is even more important for us, and this was already mentioned, because we deal daily, dear guests, dear ladies, dear gentlemen, with the urgent and depressing needs of thousands of refugees flooding to Vienna. And I'm proud to say, as a member of the city, that we support all these people with great solidarity, empathy, and compassion. This is really a good feeling, to have the feeling I can rely on my city, I can rely on my politicians. It really makes me personally happy when I go there to the station and have a look and try to help. That's really good, and I think that's good for, it's very depressing, very sad, but in a way it's good that we wake up. Hundreds of organizations, NGOs, and our citizens help there together to relieve this urgent distress. This tragedy, dear ladies and gentlemen, is of course also associated, as already mentioned, with the issue of this international roundtable. It deals about violence, it deals about repression, and therefore human rights abuse. This happens all over the world, in each society and country, daily. Focusing violence against women, as I do, and we just had last year a WHO conference on this. Also thank you, and you were very supportive on that issue. We have to think about 62 million women all over Europe who face violent attacks, according to the study of the European Agency for Fundamental Rights. This is an intersectoral issue for all the fields of politics, of course, that we have to work together. As a Women's Health Commissioner and heading the Women's Health Program of Vienna, we are especially very engaged and quite successful to integrate violence as an urgent women's health issue. Doing so, we train our health personnel of the public hospitals regularly how to deal and cope better with violence victims. So I think we will do something and we will be successful also on the issue we are facing today. Human trafficking, dear ladies and gentlemen, concerns so many women also, has to be combated. There is zero tolerance with this criminal act and business. Human beings, men, women and children, are labeled as products, are discriminated, traded, tortured and sold. The city of Vienna has set a signal to combat all the violation of human rights, declaring the city as a city of human rights. As already said, it's a privilege to work for and live in this city. Once again, we therefore are very honored, dear ladies and gentlemen, to host this important meeting. Thanks you, Helga. I wish you and us a very fruitful discussion and results to deal better with this depressing issue. I also would like to mention, I did not yet get into it, but I have a vision as already a reality that women also sold their wombs, sold their eggs, and all those things. So also we have to think about the business and the markets doing with women reproductive issue. Also this is one thing I feel responsible for. So welcome again in Vienna, and thank you very much, Helga.
Thank you very much, dear Beate. And now we have recently established another cooperation. Yeah? We have established cooperation, again, Vienna administration, but not only, also with Bulgaria, on the EU strategy for the Danube region. And we hope and wish to be able to continue this cooperation because this is important. Our initiative is also called Regional Initiative, which means we go beyond Austria and try to link up with our neighbors and others. So we are very happy to have, on the one hand, Daniela Urschitz here from the Vienna administration, and to have Blaga Stancheva, or is it Stancheva? Stancheva from the Ministry of the Interior in Bulgaria. And I give first the floor to Daniela Urschitz, please.
Well, thank you. That's an early applause. I mean, let's see. So, dear colleagues and friends, ladies and gentlemen, I'm also very glad to be here today, together with Blaga Stancheva from Bulgaria. We represent, respectively, Priority Area 10 and 11 of the Danube EU European Strategy for the Danube region. Now, some of you may have heard from it. It's a macro-regional initiative. It's a quite young initiative of the European Union. Danke. But not many of you may know how it functions. It's actually quite mysterious. So very shortly, I'd like to introduce you to how do we work and why we're very happy to work together with Helga's initiative. The European Union strategy for the Danube region is one of 4 already existing macro-regional strategies: the Baltic, the Danube, the Adriatic Ionian, and the Alpine strategy. They all work similarly. The EU strategy for the Danube region encompasses 14 countries at the heart of Europe, from Ukraine and the Republic of Moldova to Baden-Württemberg and Austria. 9 member states, 12 states, so-called transition states, 115 million inhabitants, 6 million Roma, the richest and poorest region of Europe, the world's most international river basin, and it's a door, of course, to the Black Sea, the Southern Caucasus, and Central Asia. This description, I think, already shows you that your topic today, our topic today, is very much linked to this region. How is the Danube strategy implemented? It's implemented through 12 so-called priority areas. Each is coordinated by 2 countries. For instance, my priority area 10, is called Capacity Building and Cooperation, and we do it together, the city of Vienna and the Republic of Slovenia. Yours, Blaga, is done by Bulgaria and Bavaria. What do these priority areas do? They cover topics like water, energy, mobility, tourism, biodiversity, people and skills, competitiveness, and so on. Last but not least, 10 and 11, capacity building and cooperation and security. What do priority area coordinators do? We are a kind of empowered lobbying group. We're assisted by experts, by working groups. We act as policy facilitators, and we try to fill the gaps that cannot be filled by programs, by projects, by institutions, and by administrations. We bring people together on all levels of government and on all levels of project work, if you want. At the national level, we have national coordinators, mostly 2. They work in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and in the Chancery. And although there is no real definition of a macro-regional strategy, because evidently the Baltic Sea is a very different system and a very different topic than what the Danube or the Alpine strategy could be. It covers a number of countries which have the same kind of challenges, if you want, or problems or common features. However, the aim of such a strategy is clear. We want to empower a whole region through new ways of cooperation, of multi-level, cross-sectoral and transnational exchange, and through cooperation and coordination of national and transnational activities on all levels. And in the case of the Danube strategy, of course, this should lead to a stabilization of the region on a politically, socially and economically level. The topic of good governance, capacity building and better spending of EU funding is at the core of the strategy. That's what it's all about. However, don't get your hopes up, because the famous 3 no's of the European Union are no specific funds, no new money, no legislation and no institutions. What does it mean? Actually, there is a lot of EU funding in these countries. There are huge amounts of money, but these countries are not able to spend them because they have no capacity in public administration nor in civil society to get hold of this money. So what are we trying to do? It's at the core of our activities too. We are trying to help develop institutional capacity and public service in these regions, in these countries, at all levels. We are trying to involve civil society in the governance of the region, and we're trying to involve cities and regions in the governance of this region. And I think you see that this is, it has been mentioned before today already, this also is very important now with this topic, anywhere and always, but also now with the so-called refugee crisis, because of course they pass through cities, they stay in cities, they go through the regions, and they go especially through the Danube region, and they go to the other end of the Danube region, direction Austria, Germany, Baden-Württemberg, Bavaria. It's almost 2 years ago in Bucharest, we had an annual forum. We started to talk together about the importance of bringing the subject of violence against women and children, domestic violence, about human trafficking, not yet about organ trafficking, that it's something I discovered with Helga just now. Everybody knows about the topic, but my topic was human trafficking. I think it's getting worse. We also heard that today. And I really hope that we can build up an initiative and that we can build up a cooperation. I can tell you from my experience, it's been almost 3 years I'm working with the Danube strategy, that working together across borders can become a habit and a skill, sometimes even a pleasure. And I hope that the very positive development in the last years in the Danube strategy, where people started together to talk together and to sit together, which have been at war with each other basically for centuries until very recently. And finally we started to talk together, to cooperate and to work together. And I really hope that the political crisis which we are confronted now in connection with the so-called refugee crisis will not hamper the further development of all these cooperations which have actually just started now. I leave the floor to Blaga Stancheva from Priority Area 11, and she will explain what her work is about. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Daniela, Urschitz sounds quite challenging and also promising. So we are very glad that we have started to establish this cooperation, and hope we can just influence things a bit. And I think it's also sometimes interesting, you know, if not everything is already defined, then it gives also space for development, and hopefully we will be able to do so. Please, Blaga Stancheva from Bulgaria. She is from the EU and International Cooperation Directorate from the Ministry of the Interior in Bulgaria. You have the floor.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, dear colleagues, dear ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor for me and a very big pleasure to address you on behalf of the Bulgarian Ministry of the Interior as a coordinator of Priority Area Security, Priority Area 11 of the Danube strategy, of the European strategy for the Danube region. First of all, please allow me to thank you very much, Helga Conrad, for hosting, for organizing, for initiating, above all, this very important event, and for inviting us to join you. Thank you very much, Daniela, for the wonderful cooperation we have within the Danube strategy, and for inviting us to join you here. And we are very much in hope that we are going to start a very fruitful cooperation within this area of human trafficking and organ removal. So Daniela already made a very comprehensive introduction to the Danube region and its priorities. I will add only that our priority area security is seen our work as a necessary prerequisite for any good governance, sustainable economic development, and of course the integration in the society. Daniela mentioned that Bulgaria, together with Germany on federal level, the Ministry of the Interior in Berlin and the Bavarian Ministry of Interior, State Development and Transport, we are coordinating together, we are working hand in hand in the area of security. What we are doing in the area of security, because it's a very big and broad concept, we are mainly focused on four thematic areas. First of all, we are focusing on enhancing the police cooperation, and exactly in this first target, the police cooperation, we are focused on the trafficking in human beings. Besides the trafficking, we are dealing also with the drug trafficking, with the domestic burglars, and many other things related to the whole police cooperation. On the second place, we are working on enhancing the border police cooperation along the Danube River. Thirdly, we are focusing on the border management, the consular and the visa issues. We are working within this field together with the Ministries of Foreign Affairs. And last but not least, we are focused, our interest is focused on strengthening the rule of law and combating the corruption. As you can see, our portfolio is very big, very ambitious, because we are trying to cover a very broad variety of topics. And recently we have included two very important, also very sensitive topics, that are the terrorism and the migration issues. So we are always driven by the ambition to continually improve our work, and we are pretty conscious that we are in debt, to be honest, to our citizens, to our partners in the field of human trafficking, as since the launch of the strategy in 2011. In 2012, we already held a regional conference in Sofia on combating the trafficking in human beings, and the event proved to be a useful platform for brainstorming and discussions on the possibility for macro-regional projects. And we're pretty conscious that, as I mentioned, we are still in debt, and we see that there is a lot to be done. Recently, I have to say that in the project folio of PA11, one of our main stakeholders, this is the Southeast Law Enforcement Center based in Bucharest in Romania, developed very promising project proposals on countering the trafficking in persons, and the main activities envisaged within these projects are elaborating a questionnaire regarding the national situation in all the 14 Danube strategy countries on trafficking in human beings, and the questionnaire regarding the national situation on illegal migration. The both phenomena are going to be linked, are going to be studied together. Then our colleagues are going to draft a report. They're going to organize a conference, and as they are an operational structure, they are also planning, foreseeing to prepare a joint operation on concrete cases to combat concrete cases of trafficking in different countries. It's going to be, once again, a joint operation. If not in all the 14 countries, at least in some of them. I mean, for sure it's going to be a country of destination, a country of origin, etc. So the project idea was strongly supported by our priority area, by priority area security, and we are hopeful that it will be successfully implemented in the next year. We always have been looking for the added value of our work in the field of security to increase the effectiveness of our efforts and to achieve tangible results. We will continue our efforts for identifying the common grounds and thematic overlapping of joint initiatives with different partners. We see, as an example of common initiatives in the field of trafficking in human beings, the joint development of concrete project ideas, organizing stakeholders' events, and exchange of best practices. The added value of the cross-sectoral cooperation will result not only in better visibility and impact of our activities, but above all, to more concrete, more tangible results in these so important topics. We are convinced that the common voice leads to higher acceptance and better results. The priority area coordinators, the Bulgarian and the German ministries of the Interior, and the coordination bureau of our priority area are open for any further initiative in the field of trafficking in human beings, which could contribute to a better cooperation in the Danube region in this very important field. Okay, thank you once again for inviting us, and we are really very much looking forward for our future cooperation. Thank you.